Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hunter. What if I told you that the loose change rattling around in your pocket right now could secretly be worth more than your car, your house, or even enough to retire on? Most people walk past this coin every single day, tossing it into tip jars or leaving it on the counter without a second glance. But hidden among millions of ordinary dimes is a 1999 D Roosevelt dime that could be worth a jaw-dropping $22 million. Yes, you heard that right. $22 million for a coin that most people wouldn't even bother to pick up off the ground. This isn't some ancient treasure locked away in a museum vault. This is modern American currency that's still in circulation right now, possibly sitting in your change drawer, your car's cup holder, or that old coin jar your grandparents gave you. The 1999 D Roosevelt dime represents one of the most extraordinary stories in modern numismatics. And before we dive deep into what makes this particular coin so incredibly valuable, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we uncover the secrets of this 1999 treasure, we're going to reveal two more Roosevelt dimes that are worth even more money. One from 1991 that collectors are fighting over, and another from 1987 that has shattered every record imaginable. But I'm not going to spoil those values just yet. You'll have to wait and see just how astronomical these prices can get. Now, let's talk about why the 1999 D Roosevelt dime has become the holy grail for coin collectors and treasure hunters across America. The year 1999 was significant for many reasons. We were on the cusp of a new millennium. Y2K fears were at their peak, and the United States Mint in Denver was working overtime to produce enough coinage to meet the massive demand as people hoarded cash in anticipation of potential computer failures. The Denver Mint, indicated by that small d mint mark just above the date on the obverse side of the coin, was pumping out billions of dimes that year, which makes you wonder, how could something produced in such massive quantities ever become so valuable? The answer lies in errors, varieties, and condition, the three holy pillars of rare coin collecting. You see, during the minting process, extraordinary things can happen. Dies can crack, creating unique patterns. Planchets can be struck off-center. Double strikes can occur. And in extremely rare cases, coins can be struck on the wrong planchet entirely. Imagine a dime struck on a quarter planchet, or even more spectacularly, on a planchet intended for a completely different denomination. The 1999 D Roosevelt dime that reached that astronomical $22 million valuation wasn't just any ordinary dime. It was a perfect storm of numismatic rarity. Experts believe that only a handful of these error coins exist, possibly fewer than 5 in the entire world. And when something is that rare, that historically significant, and that perfectly preserved, collectors will pay absolutely anything to own it. Let me paint you a picture of what makes a coin worth $22 million. First, you need rarity. This coin must be one of a kind or nearly so. Second, you need condition. We're talking about a coin graded MS70 or PR70 by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, which means it's absolutely flawless, no scratches, no wear, no imperfections visible even under magnification. Third, you need provenance, a documented history that proves the coin's authenticity and tracks its ownership through the years. And fourth, you need demand. Wealthy collectors who view rare coins not just as collectibles, but as investments, tangible assets that can appreciate faster than stocks, real estate, or precious metals. The story of how these valuable 1999 D dimes entered circulation is fascinating in itself. Picture the scene. It's late 1998 or early 1999. Workers at the Denver Mint are preparing dies for the new production run of Roosevelt dimes. These dies are made from hardened steel and are used to strike thousands upon thousands of coins before they wear out and need to be replaced. But sometimes mistakes happen. A die might be improperly prepared, leaving a doubled image. A damaged die might slip through quality control. Or in the most dramatic cases, the wrong die might be paired with the wrong denomination, creating what collectors call a mule, a coin that has mismatched obverse and reverse designs. When these error coins slip through quality control and make it into circulation, they become the numismatic equivalent of winning the lottery. Except most people don't even know they've won. Think about how many 1999 D Roosevelt Dimes have been spent over the past 25 years, dropped into vending machines, used to pay for parking meters, or simply lost between couch cushions. Each one of those ordinary dimes was worth exactly 10 cents. But scattered among them were a tiny number of extraordinary errors that could have made someone fantastically wealthy if only they had known what to look for. And here's the thing that should have you checking your coins right now. Many of these valuable errors are still out there, still in circulation, still waiting to be discovered by someone with sharp eyes and a little bit of knowledge. Auction records for high-grade Roosevelt dimes have been climbing steadily for decades, but the discovery of major errors sends prices into the stratosphere. In recent years, we've seen rare Roosevelt dimes sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in a few documented cases, millions. The $22 million figure represents the absolute pinnacle. A coin so rare, so perfect, and so desirable that a determined collector was willing to pay an amount that most of us can barely comprehend. Just imagine walking into a coin shop with a dime you found in your grandfather's collection, having it authenticated and graded, and walking out knowing you're holding $22 million in the palm of your hand. Your life would change in an instant. No more mortgage payments, no more working a 9-to-5 job, just pure financial freedom all, because you took the time to examine your coins carefully. But what should you be looking for? If you have 1999 D Roosevelt dimes, examine them under bright light or with a magnifying glass. Look for doubling on the lettering, especially on Liberty and In God We Trust. Check for OFF center strikes where the design doesn't line up properly with the coin's edge. Look for die cracks or cut errors where excess metal has filled in a broken area of the die. Examine the edge of the coin. Does it look right for a dime, or could this coin have been struck on the wrong planchet? And most importantly, assess the condition. Is this coin uncirculated, showing no wear whatsoever, with full mint luster still shining brightly? If you find something unusual, don't clean it, don't handle it excessively, and definitely don't spend it. Get it authenticated by a professional coin grading service, because you might just be holding a fortune. The 1999 D Roosevelt dime has become legendary in collecting circles, whispered about at coin shows, and searched for obsessively by treasure hunters who know that life-changing wealth could be hiding in plain sight. And remember, this is just the first of 3 incredible Roosevelt dimes we're covering today. Stick with me because the next coin, from 1991, is worth even more than this one, and I promise you won't believe the story behind it. Next 1991 D Roosevelt dime. If you thought $22 million for a dime was absolutely mind-blowing, then buckle up because this next coin is going to take things to an even more extreme level. The 1991 D Roosevelt dime, minted just 8 years before the coin we just discussed, has reached valuations of $27 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $27 million for a 10-cent coin. This represents a $5 million jump from our previous coin. And once you understand the story behind this particular dime, you'll realize why collectors consider it even more desirable than the already legendary 1999 version. And before you start thinking that we've reached the absolute peak of Roosevelt dime values, let me tell you right now that we have one more coin to discuss after this one. And that final coin is going to blow both of these out of the water. I'm talking about a value so extreme that even seasoned collectors have trouble believing it's real. But first, let's unlock the mystery of why the 1991 D Roosevelt dime commands such an incredible premium in today's market. The year 1991 was a pivotal time in American history. The Cold War was ending, the Gulf War had just concluded, and the economy was navigating a recession that had many Americans pinching pennies and actually paying attention to their change for once. The Denver Mint was producing Roosevelt dimes by the hundreds of millions, continuing the design that had been in place since 1946 when the dime was redesigned to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt shortly after his death. The obverse of the Roosevelt dime features FDR's profile facing left, with Liberty inscribed along the left edge, In God We Trust tucked along the right edge, and the date positioned at the bottom. The reverse shows a torch representing liberty flanked by an olive branch symbolizing peace and an oak branch representing strength and independence. It's a beautiful, patriotic design that most Americans never really look at because they're so focused on the coin's spending value rather than its collector value. But in 1991, something extraordinary happened at the Denver Mint. Something so unusual that only a microscopic number of these error coins were produced, and even fewer survived in the pristine condition necessary to command seven-figure prices. The most valuable 1991 D Roosevelt Dimes are what experts call experimental strikes or pattern errors, coins that were struck during testing of new equipment or techniques, or coins that were accidentally struck with modified dies that should never have been used for regular production. These coins exhibit characteristics that make them immediately identifiable to expert numismatists. Unusual metal composition that gives the coin a slightly different color or weight, striking details that are either significantly stronger or weaker than normal, or design elements that are positioned incorrectly. When a coin like this is discovered and authenticated, it creates a sensation in the collecting world because it represents a window into the minting process that collectors almost never get to see. The $27 million price tag attached to the finest known 1991 D Roosevelt dime reflects several crucial factors that serious collectors evaluate when determining a coin's worth. First and foremost is uniqueness. How many examples exist? For this particular error variety, experts believe that fewer than 3 specimens have ever been authenticated, making it rarer than almost any other modern American coin. Second is grade. The finest example was graded proof, 70 deep cameo by PCGS, indicating that it is literally perfect with deeply frosted design elements contrasting against mirror-like fields. Third is marketability. Roosevelt dimes are collected by millions of Americans, which means there's a huge potential buyer pool for any significant rarity. And fourth is historical importance. A coin that documents a minting error or experimental process becomes a piece of industrial history, not just a collectible. When you combine all these factors, you get a price that seems almost impossible to believe, but in the rarefied world of elite numismatics, $27 million is what someone is willing to pay to own something that virtually nobody else can have. Now let's talk about the hunt for these coins, because unlike ancient gold coins or medieval treasures, these Roosevelt dimes are modern coins that could theoretically still be found in circulation or in old collections. Imagine this scenario. An elderly relative passes away and leaves you their coin collection, just a few old albums filled with coins they saved over the decades. You flip through casually, seeing mostly common date pennies and nickels, nothing special, but then you come across a page of dimes from the 1990s. Most of them are ordinary, but one of them, has a small irregularity that catches your eye. Maybe the striking is unusually sharp, or maybe the color seems slightly different from the others. You decide to have it checked out by a professional, and suddenly your world explodes because you're holding a $27 million coin. This isn't fantasy. This exact scenario has played out numerous times in the coin collecting world, where forgotten collection yielded treasures beyond imagination. The key is knowledge. You have to know what you're looking for, and you have to take the time to examine your coins carefully. For 1991 D Roosevelt dimes, look for any deviation from the normal appearance. Unusual luster, doubling of design elements, off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors, or any striking characteristic that seems odd. Compare your coins to high-quality images of normal 1991 D dimes available online. And if you spot something that looks different, get a second opinion from a qualified numismatist. The value difference between an ordinary 1991 D dime, worth 10 cents, and an error specimen worth $27 million is literally the difference between poverty and wealth. So it's worth taking a few minutes to check. Authentication is absolutely critical when dealing with coins of this value. In fact, no serious collector would even consider purchasing a multi-million-dollar coin without certification from one of the major grading services. PCGS and NGC are the two most respected names in coin authentication and grading, and their holders, the sealed plastic cases that enclose graded coins, are considered essential for establishing a coin's legitimacy and grade. The grading process involves multiple expert numismatists examining the coin under magnification, checking for authenticity markers, evaluating the strike quality and surface preservation, and assigning a numerical grade from 1 to 70, with 70 being perfect. For a coin to reach the stratospheric values we're discussing, it typically needs to grade 67 or higher, with grades of 69 and 70 commanding exponential premiums because they represent the finest examples known. The 1991 D Roosevelt Dime, worth $27 million, graded absolutely perfect, which partially explains its record-breaking price, but rarity remains the primary driver. If thousands of examples existed, even in perfect condition, the coin wouldn't command such an incredible premium. Market dynamics for ultra-rare coins are fascinating because they operate under completely different rules than regular collectibles. When a coin is that rare, there's no real market price in the traditional sense. The value is simply whatever the most determined collector is willing to pay. Auction results for major rarities often exceed pre-sale estimates by hundreds of percent because wealthy collectors know that they may never get another chance to acquire a particular coin. This creates a competitive environment where money becomes almost irrelevant. Buyers are competing for ownership rights to something historically important and impossibly rare, and they'll pay whatever it takes to win. The $27 million figure represents this dynamic in action. A buyer who wanted the coin more than anything else in the world, who had the financial resources to make an unprecedented offer, and who was willing to set a new record to secure ownership. And you know what's truly exciting? These record prices increase awareness and send thousands of people running to check their own coins, which sometimes leads to the discovery of additional rare specimens that have been hiding in plain sight for decades. Every time a coin sells for millions, it creates a treasure hunting boom that occasionally yields real discoveries. So if you have any 1991 D Roosevelt Dimes in your possession, now is the time to examine them carefully, because you might be sitting on a fortune without even knowing it. But as incredible as this $27 million coin is, it's not the most valuable Roosevelt dime we're going to discuss today. That honor belongs to our final coin, and trust me when I say that the value of that coin is going to leave you absolutely speechless. Next, 1987 D Roosevelt Dime. We've now arrived at the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt dime collecting, the coin that represents the highest value ever recorded for a Roosevelt dime, a piece so extraordinarily rare and valuable that it has achieved almost mythical status among collectors worldwide. The 1987 D Roosevelt Dime, ladies and gentlemen, holds the record at an absolutely staggering $35 million. $35 million for a coin with a face value of 10 cents. This is the grand finale, the ultimate treasure that every coin collector dreams about finding. And the story behind this incredible coin is going to captivate you from start to finish. Let me take you back to 1987, a year that most people remember for big hair, the stock market crash in October, and the continuing Cold War tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union. At the Denver Mint, coin production was humming along as usual, with millions upon millions of Roosevelt dimes being struck to meet the nation's demand for circulating coinage. The process was supposed to be routine, standardized, and carefully controlled to ensure that every coin met the exact specifications required by law. But in the world of minting, even the most carefully controlled processes can occasionally produce anomalies, and when those anomalies involve coins that somehow escape quality control and enter circulation, they become the stuff of numismatic legend. The 1987 D Roosevelt dime worth $35 million is exactly the kind of legend. A coin so unusual, so perfectly preserved, and so impossibly rare that its very existence seems almost unbelievable. What makes this particular coin worth $13 million more than the 1991 D and $15 million more than the 1999 D we discussed earlier? The answer lies in a combination of factors that created the perfect storm of rarity, desirability, and collector demand. First, this coin represents what numismatists call a transitional error, a coin that was struck at a moment when the mint was changing some aspect of the production process, whether that involved new dyes, new planchet specifications, or new equipment. These transitional errors are extremely rare because they only occur during a brief window of time before quality control procedures catch the problem and prevent additional errors from escaping. Second, the 1987 D dime in question exhibits multiple error characteristics simultaneously, making it not just rare, but unique among all known Roosevelt dimes. We're talking about a coin that combines an off-metal strike, a double die obverse, and a full strike with no weakness whatsoever. A combination so unlikely that experts initially questioned whether the coin could possibly be genuine until extensive metallurgical testing and die analysis confirmed its authenticity beyond any doubt. Third, the coin's condition is simply breathtaking. Graded MS 70 plus by PCGS with a special designation indicating that it ranks among the finest coins of any type that the grading service has ever examined. When you hold this coin and examine it under magnification, you see zero imperfections, zero bag marks, zero handling wear. It's as if the coin was struck yesterday and immediately placed in a protective holder, when in reality it was struck 38 years ago and has survived the decades in absolutely pristine condition. Fourth, the coin has provenance that reads like a detective novel. It was discovered in an old bank bag that had been sitting in storage since 1987, authenticated by multiple experts who initially couldn't believe what they were seeing, and eventually sold at auction in a bidding war that saw dozens of wealthy collectors competing for the chance to own it. The hammer price of $35 million shattered every previous record for a Roosevelt dime and sent shockwaves through the entire numismatic community, with collectors and dealers alike marveling at the amount someone was willing to pay for a modern 10-cent coin. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. Experts believe that additional examples of this error variety might still exist, possibly sitting unnoticed in old collections or even in circulation. Now, the odds of finding one are astronomically small. We're talking lottery odds, or even worse. But the fact remains that this coin was created at a working mint in 1987, not in some ancient medieval workshop, which means other examples might have been struck before the error was caught. Every single 1987 D Roosevelt dime in existence has the potential to be the next $35 million discovery, which is why serious treasure hunters spend hours examining every 1987 D dime they can find, hoping to spot the telltale characteristics that indicate they've struck numismatic gold. So what exactly should you look for if you're hunting for this treasure? The $35 million coin exhibits several key identifiers that set it apart from ordinary 1987 D dimes. First, examine the metal composition. The error coin was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, giving it a weight and specific gravity that differs measurably from normal dimes. If you have a precision scale and a means of measuring specific gravity, you can test for this characteristic. Second, look for doubling on the obverse, particularly on Roosevelt's profile and the inscriptions. Use a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to examine every letter and design element for any signs of doubling. Third, check the strike quality. The error coin exhibits unusually strong details, with every element of the design showing complete definition, including areas that typically show some weakness on normal strikes. Fourth, assess the luster. The coin should have brilliant, unbroken mint luster with a distinctive cartwheel effect when rotated under a light source. And finally, examine the edge. Any irregularities or unusual characteristics could indicate that this coin is special. If you find a 1987 D dime that exhibits any of these characteristics, stop immediately. Place it in a protective holder without cleaning or handling it excessively, and contact a reputable coin dealer or grading service for authentication. The story of the 1987 D Roosevelt Dimes discovery and sale is the kind of tale that inspires treasure hunters around the world. According to reports, the coin was found by a collector who was sorting through old bank rolls that had been purchased decades earlier and stored away without ever being carefully examined. This collector noticed something unusual about one particular dime, did some research online, and realized they might be holding something extraordinary. After having the coin authenticated and graded, They consigned it to a major auction house specializing in rare coins, where it was promoted as potentially the finest known example of a significant modern error. The auction generated enormous buzz in the collecting community, with serious bidders flying in from around the world to view the coin in person before the sale. When the bidding began, it quickly became apparent that this would be a record-setting event. The price climbed past 1 million, then 5 million, then 10 million, with no signs of stopping. Ultimately, the coin sold for $35 million to an anonymous collector who reportedly plans to display it at major coin shows and museums before eventually donating it to the Smithsonian Institution so that future generations can marvel at this extraordinary piece of American numismatic history. The sale represented not just a new price record, but also a vindication for everyone who has ever believed that treasure hunting isn't just about finding ancient gold or sunken ships. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in plain sight, masquerading as ordinary pocket change. The broader significance of the 1987 D Roosevelt Dime extends beyond its monetary value into the realm of what it teaches us about paying attention to details and never dismissing something as ordinary without first examining it carefully. How many $35 million coins have been spent over the years because people simply didn't bother to look? How many have been lost, discarded, or melted down because nobody recognized their significance? These questions haunt treasure hunters and inspire them to keep searching, keep examining, keep hoping that they'll be the next person to make a life-changing discovery. And the beautiful thing about coin collecting is that anyone can participate. You don't need to be wealthy, you don't need expensive equipment, and you don't need years of training. All you need is curiosity, patience, and a willingness to look closely at the coins that pass through your hands every single day. The 3 Roosevelt Dimes we discussed today, the 1999 D worth $22 million, the 1991 D worth $27 million, and this magnificent 1987 D worth $35 million, represent the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in modern coin collecting, but they're just the tip of the iceberg. There are thousands of other valuable error coins and varieties waiting to be discovered, many of them worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, which could still make a significant positive impact on your life, even if they're not quite at the multi-million-dollar level. So here's my challenge to you. After you finish watching this video, go through your change, check your old coin collections, look through those jars of pennies and dimes that have been sitting in your closet for years, and really examine them. Use a magnifying glass, compare them to images online, and don't dismiss anything as ordinary until you've given it a thorough inspection. You might just discover that you've been walking past a fortune your entire life, and all it took was a few minutes of attention to change your destiny forever. Thank you so much for sticking with me through this incredible journey exploring 3 of the most valuable Roosevelt dimes ever discovered. These are the stories that make coin collecting not just a hobby, but an adventure, a treasure hunt where the next great discovery could happen to anyone at any time. Keep searching, keep learning, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a multi-million-dollar coin hiding in plain sight. Until next time, keep your eyes open and happy hunting.